Now we are going to look at object snaps. Snaps can be quite useful, and they can also be quite a problem if you don't learn to control them from the beginning. There's always multiple ways to access them. Somewhere up here in the drafting setting you can get to them, but the easier ways to get to them is such as this, not the tic-tac-toe looking thing, but the pattern next to it. If you noticed, when I clicked it, it snap mode off, snap mode on here above the command line, and you can toggle it off and on. That's not how I typically like to do it. Again, I favor the keyboard. I like the absolute control. But if you go to the function keys and use F3, it'll turn snap off, snap on, snap off, snap on, just by touching the key. And that's typically how I do it while I'm drawing. If I'm up here, I'm not going to come all the way down here just to click that. I'm just going to hit the key. So that's how you toggle all them off and on. And this little drop down next to it opens snap settings, which when we click on that, it'll bring up a lot of things here. We're really not going to be using the snap to grid or anything like that yet. So what we're interested in is object snap, and it'll bring up this box, and from the command line to get to it, if you just type OS, it brings up OSnap, so object snap. So it'll take us right to where we want to go. Again, that's probably one of the reasons I prefer the keyboard. Now if you look, it's right here at object snap on. So right is an F3, so that's our function 3 key. So if I hit that, it turns it off and on, off and on, off and on. Which when you're snapping and not snapping the things, when you need to turn them off and on, it's much quicker than, you know, coming down here looking for that. But what you have to pay attention to is what you have turned on and what you have turned off. A lot of people start out, they'll come turn everything on, and they'll create themselves quite a headache, because it'll snap to points where you're not really wanting to go. I'm going to turn most of them on just so I can show you. I really don't use quadrant for anything. And tangent is often useful. And notice that these object snap tracking over here use a different key. They use function 11, F11 key, to turn them off and on. Sometimes you may want to use the parallel, but very rarely. And like I said, normally I would never work with them all on. I'd only have the ones on I wanted to use, but for the purpose of what we're doing right now, I've got most of them on. So once you're happy with the settings, you can tell it okay. And what these do, notice, and of course they want to be difficult. So I guess you have to want to do something first. So if I wanted to create a line, notice how it snaps to the endpoint. That can be good, unless I'm trying to put a line here. And if you notice, it keeps snapping back to that endpoint on me, which is what I don't want. So now midpoint, that's very useful for finding the midpoint if that's what you want. But if you're trying to click somewhere between the two, it'll jump to one or the other when you click on it, which is not what you want to do. So you can just as easily hit F3, pick whatever spot you're actually trying to pick, and start from there, or turn them back on. And notice it picks our center points again. So if we drew a line from center point to center point over here, our midpoint to midpoint over here, that would tell us exactly where that needed to be. But there's other ways to find it. And then when we're playing with circles, see how I hover on it and it put that point there that didn't exist. That's just a snapping point. So and that can be useful if I'm trying to click here. Not so much, but if I try and click here, it's going to snap to wherever that green thing is. So you may need to turn them off and on as you're trying to do things. You turn them off, and then you can, put your line wherever you want it to be. You don't have to be stuck using the snaps. And another way that can be useful is you can, draw a line. I activated the tangent, which doesn't seem to want to work right now. Let's see. So no, just but that allows you to pick that corner, pick the geometrical center, fairly accurately. Snaps often are not 100% perfect, but as you can see, I was off of that when I clicked and it snapped right to it. So if you're just wanting to click around and actually pick the points simply, snaps work for you. When you're trying to do something else, they may work against you. That's why being able to toggle them off and on simply is your best, one of the best things you can learn. And then again, to get back to that, all you need to type is OS for OSnap, and it'll bring you right to the menu that you need to play with things. Like I said, I normally don't use these very often. I normally use these, but often I will only have one or two of them on at a time, depending on what it is that I'm trying to do with them. So use them with care. They can be your friend. Otherwise, you can end up making something real silly looking like that unintentionally.